Hello everyone, my name is John Bussard. I'm an HPE Business Transformation Center engineer for Ingram Micro. I help support HPE servers, blade systems, storage, as well as Aruba networking technology solutions. In my videos, what I like to do is show you a slide from a popular PowerPoint and then demonstrate to you what that means within a management context. Today, we're going to continue on our conversation with the Generation 6 line of MSA storage solutions from HPE. I'm going to be showing you my demonstration on an MSA 2062, but everything I show you can be applied to a 2060 as well as a 1060 series solution. Now we're going to be looking at the tiering capabilities, and the tiering capabilities really revolve around pools as well as disk groupings inside this environment. So we'll start with pools. Pools, there's two of them. There's an A pool and a B pool, and those are roughly associated with controllers within the environment. I say roughly because if a controller happens to fail, right, the surviving controller will own both the pools. Now within these pools, you'll have disk groupings, and basically that's grouping together of disks, obviously, in a particular RAID set. Right? You can have an archive tier, a standard tier, as well as a performance or a read caching tier. So the idea with this, nearline disks would be placed in an archive tier. Right? Standard disks, such as SAS disks, SAS spinning disks, they'll be put in a standard tier. And your SSD drives, if you have the Advanced Data Services licenses, which comes with an MSA 2062, right, they'll be placed in a performance tier, or you can use them as an SSD read cache tier inside the environment. Right, on an ongoing basis, the pool will load balance your data across the storage. So your entire capacity is going to be equal to all the disk groups within the environment. Right, and then hot blocks of data will get put on a performance tier. Data that's a little bit colder will be put on a standard tier. And data that's accessed infrequently will be put on an archive tier. And if for some reason something in the archive tier starts to get accessed significantly, then I'll start moving up through the tiers from the standard tier to the performance tier if needed inside this environment. So it's a great way to kind of, get the most performance out of your solution, right, per capacity within the environment. Now, another thing I would like to talk about is standard RAID levels. So certainly we should start to be moving away from RAID level 5 sets in the environment. You could certainly use them in an environment, but the likelihood of double disk failures with spinning disks has, started to pop up, overall within the storage industry. So most people have moved to a RAID 6. When you move to a RAID 6, you could survive double disk drive failures, right? But there is a performance penalty with that inside the environment. Now, to alleviate that, HP with this series of solutions has released something called MSA-DP+. So again, this is a double parity failure within the environment, but the way they do the striping of the data within the environment allows us to be able to maintain performance or get better performance than a typical RAID 6 environment. Now, when we're dealing with disk groupings within pools, in order to be able to expand traditionally with traditional RAID sets, RAID 1, RAID 5, or RAID 6, I have to add an additional disk group in the environment. All right, so I want to think about how I size my disk groups, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Right, with MSA-DP+, right, I can add single disks into the environment, expand out my disk group in that fashion. Right, so that's a benefit. Now the trade-off is I do need to start a disk grouping with 12 disks in order to be able to use MSA-DP+. But that's pretty typical with these type of storage solutions that are out there, so it's nothing to be too concerned about. Plus, if you want to start off smaller with different RAID levels and then maybe migrate to DP+, there are mechanisms to do that, but you certainly want to think about how you do that. So with all that being said, let's explore this management context. Okay, so this is the interface for MSA 2062. Again, I know it says 2060 up here, but this is the same piece of hardware with an extra license, MSA-DP+, as well as a couple SSD drives inside the environment. One other thing I like to point out right now is we don't have anything listed as far as capacity is concerned. It does tell us that we have a total disk capacity of 11 terabytes, and we have 14 disks, but nothing's available. As a matter of fact, if I go down to provisioning here, go to volumes, the create volume is grayed out, and that's mainly because I need to create disk groups behind pools within my environment. So let's talk a little bit about that. So let's go down to maintenance, and first I'm going to go to hardware, and let's take a look at the disks that we have within this environment. So over here I have a couple of 1.9 terabyte SSD drives that are connected to the SAS bus. Over here, I have 12 600 gig drives. Right, and these are normal spinning based disks. Now, if I look at storage, you could say I have a pool A and a pool B. And I'll say those are roughly attached to the controllers inside the environment. So if I go down to hardware and I do a rear view, you'll see I've got controller A and controller B. And the reason why I say roughly, because there's a failure of one of these two controllers, the surviving controller will take ownership of the disk groups and volumes that exist, or take ownership of the pool that exists. All right, so let's go back under storage. Now let's look under pool A. I'm going to add a disk group. And then I'm going to do RAID level 1 just so because it makes things happen a little bit quicker. I'm going to grab these two SAS disks here. I'm going to add this disk group. And we can see our available storage over here. And if I scale down, we could see that we're in an initialization phase. And here is our disk size. So generally speaking, we want to see these disk groups get through a preparation phase and an initialization phase before we'll realize the true performance of what we utilize in our environment. And that's why normally I say check out the time down below in the corner on my videos, but I've kind of removed that. Not that I don't care if you guys look at that or check that out, but sometimes it takes a little longer for things to happen. And I've got other things to do around the lab, so I'm going to leave and come back sometimes and let this initialization and preparation process happen. Sometimes the caching tiering that I'm going to show you, or using this tiering architecture, takes a little time to kind of bake or realizes its true performance. And again, I'm going to walk away and come back. There'll certainly be ways you can see time inside this environment, but I kind of wanted to be not so distracting inside this environment. But at any rate, we've got this disk group down here. All right, I can go back up to the dashboard. We can see that this has changed. We can see pool A has got capacity in it. Right. Also, I could go down to provisioning, go to volumes. Right, and the create volume is lit up, so I could click on this and I can actually create a volume at this point. At this point, we're in an active passive model. So you can choose how you want to set this up. You can have it active active or active passive. Right now, and if I created a volume, it would exist under pool A. If pool A failed, it would be picked up by the surviving controller and be made available inside this environment. Right, so that's again why I said they were loosely attached. If I wanted to have an active model, use both controllers, I would need to add a disk group to pool B. So why don't we do that right now? We'll go down, and I'm going to do a RAID level 1. We'll grab a couple of SAS disks, and we'll add this disk group. Right, and we can see this is down here. Expand this out, we could see that this RAID set, this disk grouping is down here, and it's initializing. If I go back to the dashboard, you can see I have capacity in pool A and then pool B. And if I go down to provisioning and volumes, I actually click on the create volumes, you will see that I could choose pool A or pool B. Now if I had just the disk groups under pool A, only A would show up here, and that would be my only option to select. So let's go back down. Let's go back to storage. All right, let's get rid of this disk group down here. And let's focus in on this disk grouping up here under pool A. So right now my available capacity is this size. So say I need to expand or add extra capacity to this. With traditional RAID types, right, I'm going to need to add extra disk group. That does change with MSA-DP plus, a RAID type of that. And that's something that's a feature within this new MSA Generation 6 line of products. For example, if I expand out over here, I don't have an option to add extra disks. You'll see that all across all traditional RAID types. If I want to expand, I'm going to add an extra disk group. So one of the things I'd like you to notice, this is an SSD set of drives, or SSD RAID level 1. Its tier is performance. So let's add another disk group. Again, I'm going to do the RAID level 1. I'm going to grab a couple SAS disks. We're going to add this group. And you can see it's created. Now we are in a preparation process, but when this is done preparing, my available storage will be both disk groups here. Right, so let me important notes. Now you notice the types. We've got a performance tier and a standard tier. The performance tier will be allocated to SSD drives. So anytime you create a RAID set with SSD drives, they're going to be put into a performance tier. If I created a RAID type or disk group with SAS disks, they're going to be put in a standard tier. Now, one thing I'm not showing here is there is an archive tier. So if I make a disk grouping with nearline disks, they'd show up in an archive tier. Again, it's total storage. Once this is done preparing, will be all of the storage all together. All of this capacity. So why do we have this? Well, on an ongoing basis, right, this pool will load balance hot blocks of data, right, or where your data will be more efficient. So data that's accessed frequently, those blocks will be put on a performance tier. Data that's accessed infrequently will be put on a standard tier. Data that's never accessed will be put on the archive tier, which isn't shown here. And on an ongoing basis, the pool would manage where this data needs to sit to get the most performance and capacity within the environment. Now, if I need to add extra capacity, I'm going to need to add an extra disk group. So let's go through and do that. Maybe I've decided, I don't want to use RAID level 1, or if I was going to expand this, I'd probably want to expand with RAID level 1 disk groups. Right, and I'll explain why. So let's add another disk group. Right, and this time we'll do a RAID level 5. I certainly wouldn't suggest RAID level 5 nowadays with spinning disks, but again, I'm just trying to show you something. So let's grab the proper number of disks. You see we can add that disk group. We'll click OK. Now notice something. These are both standard tier. Right, so these will both be treated the same as far as our tiering algorithm within this MSA Gen 6 solution. Right, but if you've been doing storage long enough, the amount of disks you have within a RAID set, as well as the RAID type, definitely has different performance metrics. But at this point, these are treated the same. Right? So you want to pay attention to that. So you want to pick, if you're going to use traditional RAID types, you want to pick the size of your disks, right, that are in the amount of disks and the RAID type, because that's how you're going to want to expand or add extra disks, is by matching that. Now, one of the things you can do is you can migrate from disk types. So for example, we added this RAID level 5. What I can do is get rid of this RAID level 1. Right, we get the message, click OK. Now if you notice, our capacity went up because it finished the preparation stage, right? But it went back down once I removed it. And that happened pretty quickly. Now in normal environments, right, this wouldn't happen so quickly, right? Because traditionally, you'd have volumes that are created on there. And if I kicked out a disk group, a drain would happen. So the data that existed on that disk group would be evacuated to other disk groups within the pool. Right? And that takes a little bit of time for that to be able to happen. But when that was done, right, the disk group would be removed. Right, and then that's a good way. In my case, I migrated from a RAID level 1 to a RAID level 5 in this environment. Now at this point, right, I have to wait a little bit, right? So I can't go over here and remove this disk group if I wanted to. Right, I can't click here. It'll tell me that this is being prepared, and if I go over here and try to remove this guy, it'll tell me it's also being prepared. So I have to wait for this to finish preparing, and then I can remove this, and then we'll kind of move on to a RAID level 6. Okay, so this is finished preparing, so let's get rid of these disk groupings. So, and we'll also get rid of our performance tier as well. There we go. All right, and we're kind of back at square one. What I want to show you is the difference in performance between different RAID types, read cache tiering, SSD, read-write tiering, things like that. Now I have a system over here that I'm going to run iometer on, and I kind of have a little notepad of the typical iometer benchmark on. If you know what an iometer is, I'll kind of show you a little bit about that. But let's go through and let's first create a RAID 6 with SAS drives. Now I'm going to create a RAID 6 with 12 SAS drives because I want you to compare that with the new RAID MSA-DP Plus found within these systems as well. So I could certainly go down to maintenance and storage, add a disk group, do RAID level 6, and then pick 4 SAS drives, and I could create this, but we're actually going to expand this all out to all 12 of these drives. With MSA-DP Plus, you do need a minimum of 12 disks. Right, so I want to make that a comparable type of benchmarking, I guess you could say. So let's add this group. It's going to let me know I want to use even sets of drives. So there's some metrics around making RAID 5 and RAID 6. We'll click OK. We've created our disk group. Here it is. See the available storage. And we see down here that it's going to initialize. Now, even though this is available for me, right, there will be a performance penalty with this while it's initializing. So it won't see its true potential until it's done initializing. Again, it's setting up the RAID set and things like that for the controller. So I definitely do want to wait until initialization is done, but it doesn't stop you from creating volumes right now. So again, if I look up at the dashboard, you can see I've got pool A capacity. I can go down to provisioning and then 2 volumes. We will call this Ingram Micro RAID 6. And we'll do this as 1 terabyte. We'll add the volume. We'll click continue. Attach the volume to a host group. Click continue again. I've got this one lonely DL360 Gen 8 system over here. It's a little bit older. All right, and that'll be this system over here. Click continue again, and then attach the volume. And I'll click OK one more time. You can see our volume down here. If I go into this system, we can right click, go to disk management, go under actions, and then do a rescan disk. And we'll see our volume is down there, and I could bring this guy online, and I could initialize it. And if I wanted to, I could actually go and format out this guy if I wanted to. Not gonna. What I am going to do is I'm going to run iometer against this volume. So iometer is a tool. It's been around for a very long time. It allows me to run a workload and generate some numbers on this volume. And it works with formatted volumes as well as non-formatted volumes. The reason why I'm going to choose non-formatted volumes is because if I do formatted volume, I want to make a big, huge file and spread it across this 1 terabyte. And I certainly want things to happen a little bit quicker. But just so there's no smoke and mirrors, because I know some of you people out there have used iometer in the past, I want you to get a little idea of what I'm doing. So let me open this up. So basically, iometer will create a worker for each thread in the environment. So core times 2, right? And then I can run it against a drive type. And here's our MSA volume. And then I've got to come at that volume in a certain way. Is it read? Is it write? And I've got this our demo access specification over here. And if I go down here, we can actually edit this and you can see what it looks like. So I'm doing 80% sequential, 20% random, 80% read, 20% write. All right, so that kind of gives you a little idea what's going on. And again, I won't get so focused on what the numbers are. I just want to show you the difference in performance, by using different tiering types, different RAID levels, and things like that in this environment. This is just a single workload coming at this environment. All right, so this will be what we will use. And again, down here, I'll keep some numbers down there just so we can see the differences between the different tiers. Now we're going to have to wait again a little bit, so I'm going to go down to maintenance and we'll go down to storage, because again I won't see the true potential of this until this is done initializing. So I'm going to wait and let this finish initializing, and then we will come back in and then we will take a look at this and start running this. Okay, so we can see that we have finished initializing our RAID 6 disk group here. And I have fired up iometer on that. Right, it's kind of converging at a number as we speak. And I can tell that by going back over here and looking under dashboard. And again, we can see performance down here. You can see things are kind of rounding out. We can get a little bit more of a detail. So we go into performance. Right, we're looking at a live view right now and things have stabilized, but I think it becomes a little bit more apparent when we look at the last 4 hours. And then we'll scroll down and we could see it is rounded out. So we're at the spot where we're going to see about the maximum amount of performance we're going to get out of this. So let's go back over here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this, and we're going to take a look at this. We're going to scribble down this number here. So what do we got? We got about 25, 14 IOPS. Right, so that's what we're seeing right now with a RAID 6. So now let's go back and let's get rid of this volume and create a new volume. And then we'll do this volume with MSA-DP plus. So let's go up, let's go over to provisioning, go down to volumes. I'm going to select our volume here. Go under actions, I'm going to delete the volume. Okay. Of course, we'll go inside our system here and we'll do a rescan disk. Flush that on out. Then I'm going to go down to maintenance. We're going to go over to storage. And here's this disk group. And what we'll do is we're going to get rid of this disk group. Alright, so this disk group is gone. Let's come back and let's add a new disk group. This time we're going to leave it at MSA-DP plus. Well, let's go all the way through and select all our disks. Now you notice this isn't lighting up until I get to the 12th disk. So you definitely do need 12 disks. We're going to add this disk group. We will click OK. Now real quick, we're going to expand out this disk group and we can see it's initializing. But if I go over here, right, we see we've got an expand disk group. So this is where we'd go expand our disk grouping by extra single drives. I don't have any more drives, so that's why it's not lit up in our environment. So we'll minimize this. All right, so at this point, we can go create a volume, even though this is initializing. Go back up to provisioning, go to volumes. We'll create a volume. Of course, we only get A, so we're going to do Ingram micro, do MSA-DP plus. Again, we'll make that 1 terabyte. We'll add that volume, continue. We'll attach this volume to a host. And there again is our DL360 Gen 8 server. So we'll click continue again. And then we'll attach the volume. We'll click OK. Let's go see if we can see the volume on our host. So we'll do a rescan disk. And there it's showing up. So what we'll do is we'll make that online. And then we'll initialize it. I'll click OK. All right, so we're ready. Again, we'll run iometer against that. I do have to wait again though. All right, we'll run against this because once again, if we look under storage, disk groups, we're initializing this. We're not going to realize the full potential of performance until this is done initializing. So again, we're going to fade out and we'll come back in. Once again, I'll fire up iometer. Okay, as you can see that we have finished initializing our MSA-DP plus, and I've been running the workload on it for a little while, and I think we're converging at a number here, although it's still rising a little bit. But I can tell that we've kind of reached the peak. So if I go over to the dashboard, we scroll down, we can see it's rounding out just like our last one was rounding out for RAID 6. So let's go look at this a little bit deeper. All right, so we're getting a live report here, so you can see things have kind of filtered out here a little bit, or are leveling out. And we can also go over and take a look at the last 4 hours as well. Right, we'll scroll down, and again, we can see things have leveled out, right? And certainly faster. So we're looking at RAID 6 here. So real quick, what we'll do is I'll open this up, and we're just going to stop this for a second so we can get a number, and we'll add this number to our list here. So we're going to look at 3054 IOPS. I'm going to start this back up again. Right, and what I'm going to do now is we're going to start adding a read cache capability, and this is going to bounce around a little bit until it levels itself on out. But Let's go back in here and let's go down to maintenance and let's go back down to storage and let's add an extra tier of storage within our environment. All right, so let's add a disk group. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add read cache capabilities with these SSD drives. So this won't help on write, this will help with my reads, and this will not expand the capacity within the environment. What it will do is add performance as far as read capabilities. That's generally what your system is doing. It's doing more reads than it's doing writes. So let's add this disk group. Click OK, and we see we're in a preparation phase over here. Now if I expand out over here, we can see the size that's being utilized. So we got about a 1 terabyte volume. All right, and we can see how much is free from that. So that's about a terabyte. I go inside here, we're still in the preparation stage, we can see how much is being utilized and free. Again, when we're done with this, because we're adding read cache, it's not going to add to the availability of this environment, so our available storage. What it's going to do is expand out our capabilities as far as reading. So it's going to put hot blocks of data that we read, or thinks we're going to read, up into this cache. Right? And then we'll explore the read-write capabilities in a little bit. So again, we'll let this preparation go through, right? And then we'll come back here and we'll see what type of performance that we're getting out of our environment. Okay, so I've let this run overnight, and it's interesting as to what has happened. If I take a look again in the capacity, this would be my MSA-DP plus range. You can see we still got the terabyte going there, which we expect. But the read cache, if I expand that out, you can see that's expanded quite a bit. We're using about 800 gigs, so most of the volume is sitting inside the read cache. So again, this isn't extra space, this is just extra space where we can pull our reads from inside the environment. So let's take a look at what has happened as far as performance. Again, I have our workload running over here, so we are seeing a definite boost, and it is still growing as far as performance. You can see this is slowly ticking up, and I suppose it will keep on going until we use, until the entire volume is inside the read cache. But let's go over and look under the dashboard and take a look at the performance of our environment. So we can see latency has been going down, throughput and IOPS is slowly going up. If we expand this on out, we'll look at the live view. We've kind of flattened out, I think, from this view, but if I go and it will extend out to maybe like the last, I don't know, 12 hours or so, we can see everything's still trending down and everything's still going up. All right, so let's kind of call it here. I would say, it would be unusual to see your entire volume sitting within cache. Usually what you want is about 10 or 20% of your volume to sit in cache. You'll generally get the most of the performance. And obviously if this was a normal production system, right, it would pick and choose based on other volumes what it would want to keep up in that cache. Right, but we're still growing on this. I think that's important to note, but we'll stop this here and we'll take this number. Okay, this has been baking for a while, so we'll use 4093 IOPS. And it has taken us a while to get to that point. So let's continue on. And let's go over here and let's make some changes. Let's do a read-write cache. So again, we'll go down to maintenance. I'll go to storage. We'll expand out our disk groups. I'm going to take our read cache. I'm going to trash that. I'm going to click OK. Now we're going to go through a remove process, and this is going to take a little bit. Alright, so that process is finished removing, and it did take a little while, a few minutes in order for that to happen. But now that that's done, I have the ability to look at another tiering capability, which we're going to do a read-write capacity tier. So let's add a disk group. This time I'm going to do a RAID 1. We're going to select both our SSD drives. We're going to add the disk group. Click OK. Now we're going to have to wait for the preparation initialization. So in this case, what we're going to see is a boost in performance as far as reads as well as writes. If we go back and look at the dashboards for cache, we would see that we boosted the read. We should see a little bit more as far as the writes were concerned, because we weren't doing so many reads from the spinning disk. So you would have seen a little bit of a boost in the writes. But when we're done with this, we'll see a boost in both the reads as well as the writes inside this environment. So I'll do like I've done before. I'll kind of pause this video and we'll come back after I've run the workload for a little period of time. Okay, so this has been running for most of the day, so I figured I would show you kind of where it's sitting at. We'll take a look. Here's our MSA-DP Plus with our spinning disks. If we look at the storage capacity that's being utilized right now, we could see that there's not a lot that's still sitting on the MSA-DP Plus or the spinning disks in the system. If I back out and I actually expand out the performance tier or SSD drives, you can see most of it is now sitting on the SSD drive. So certainly I've been running a benchmark utility over here. Right, we're getting some decent numbers out of this. It's still growing though. This is going to keep on going until we get, the entire volume is sitting on the SSD drives. So if we go over to the dashboard, we can actually prove that to ourselves. We could see the program. So this would have been the read cache, when we turn that off, and then this would be when we did the RAID 1 with the performance tier. Let's actually look at that in a little bit better context. So if I go up here and we'll go up to live, right, we can see what our read and write performance is like. So obviously we're getting a lot out of read. We could look at the last 8 hours. Right, you can see that we're continually still growing. We could look at the last, 12 hours. See, this is when I started it up, and again, we're still climbing. Right, and again, we could compare that to, go all the way out to a day. We could compare that to the read caching capability. So certainly we've surpassed that, and it'll keep on going until everything's sitting on SSD drive and we're getting performance, out of the SSD drive. So, we'll kind of call it here for right now, because obviously having so much tiered on the SSD drive is not necessarily typical environment. You could set it up that way, but usually when you have a lot of workloads on that, some of it should end up on that and things would be a little bit more balanced. But if we stop this now, we'll kind of write down, let's see, 7902 IOPS at this point. Again, it would have realized its full potential if it would have kept on going. Right, but we could see the tremendous jumps that we're getting by just adding a little bit of SSD space inside this environment. So it certainly grows. So what is it like? What is straight out SSD performance like? What's the top end of this? Now keep in mind, I've got only 2 SSD drives in this, so we're kind of bound by that. But let's go take a look at what we get out of 2 drives within this environment. So we'll go down to maintenance here. I'll go back to storage. And I'm going to look at my disk groups. And what I'm going to do is we're going to get rid of our disk group for MSA-DP Plus. Right, now what's going to happen is we're going to get a drain. So this is going to drain out, any of the data that's left is going to be moved over to the SSD drives. So I'll kind of fade out here and I'll come back after I've run the workload on the SSDs long enough for it to kind of round out again. Okay, we're back, and I've been letting our workload run for a little while, so you can see that we are considerably faster, and we certainly have topped off. So if I take a look, and we'll go over to the dashboard, all right, we can see the performance is certainly leveled off, and we can expand this on out, and we can look at the live view as to what we are getting within this environment. Obviously, we've been interested in IOPS, so we can even look at the last 4 hours that I've been running this. You can see we're kind of sitting here. So we're definitely getting a lot more performance than what we had in the past. So let's go over here and let's stop our workload just so we can compare our results. What we're getting here is 24,353. Right, IOPS. So obviously that's considerably faster than what we've been seeing before. I can tell you that if we let the entire volume for our read tier as well as our SSD read write tier, if we had allowed that to get completely into our SSD tier, or migrate completely into SSD, or fill up that tier, we would have gotten a little closer to this, a lot closer to this as a matter of fact, but we would have never have hit that number, at least from my experiences that are out there. So certainly, all SSD is definitely a lot faster inside the environment. We get a decent amount of performance with that. One of the other things I'd like to show you within the interface, if we go under provisioning and down to volumes. Now I realize I just have a single SSD tier in here, but I did want to show you this one setting that's in here, and that would be tier affinity. Again, this is our volume that we've been working on, and this is the configuration for that volume. Now, the tier affinity, I don't have no affinity right now, but if I go in and edit it, you can see I could have an archive tier. Again, that'd be nearline drives, and I could have performance tier. So what it's going to try to do is keep data in the performance tier if I select the performance, or in the archive tier. Right, so I can select that if I want to, and we could skew our data to go one way or the other. Alright, so that's just some of the differences between the performance tiering and pooling within an MSA Generation 6 solution. Again, this is a 2062, same as a 2060, and you won't get results like this on a 1060 because it's meant to be a more of a cost-friendly option, right? But the same idea is involved. As we tier our storage in different aspects, we can expect to see different performance from within our environment. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and please stay tuned for more videos.